Hey folks, happy Monday, happy week, happy July. Welcome to TGL. My name is Grindhead Jim. We're going to talk about stuff. Yes, that's the Eternia box behind me. We moved it in here because we had a guest over who had a little dog. And I was like, the last thing I need to find out is that little guy peed or scratched or something. So just to remove that possibility, we put it in here. And it's going to force me to move some stuff around, force us to move some stuff around. Because the plan is there's a corner over there that's got some stuff stacked. And to get that out, take Eternia out of the box, move it over there so at least displayed somewhat. And that'll happen sometime. Sometime. And I didn't know what to do with the box. I just made a little display out of it. Not that you're really going to see it. I got some new stuff here. Here's Vintage Collection, R2-D2, and X-Wing Pilot Luke back there. I've got the Retro Card Scarlet, and I have, what else is behind me directly? I got Extendar. There's an April O'Neil hiding out there. There's a Splinter back there. I got Master of the WWE Universe. I got that 3-pack I told you guys about. Got Rey Mysterio and China back there. We got the Night Stalker from Mattel Creations. We got a Reptilax and a cartoon He-Man. So I'm done with the cartoon collections line now. So I just have He-Man and Skeletor and I'm good. Got the Superpowers 3-pack. Finally got it direct from McFarlane Toys for a good price, which is nice. So I catch up with you guys and we'll get into today's show proper. I want to give a shout out to Splinter Shield, who's driving on their way home. It's been a long time since I've seen this name in chat. This is back from the Twitch days, and it's good to see you, and I hope you enjoy the show. Boba Hicks says, yes, history will repeat itself. That's true, but is not necessarily a spoiler for the show. I see Bjorn Jorgensen, and figuratively speaking, and Ian Sweeney, who's got to catch up tomorrow, so we'll see you on the replay, brother. I see Manic Plastic Toy Shop and Billy Wifta and Goldratron and Mr. Mike B. Hope you're feeling great, brother. Jason Garcia says, welcome, friends. Yes, welcome, friends. Absolutely. I did mention Boba Hicks, I believe. And then we've got, figuratively speaking, I think I mentioned it before. Yeah, they're listening and cooking dinner for the family. Very cool. Boba Hicks with his usual barrage of exploding stars, brain, spicy sunfire. I don't know what that means. Godotron says, Godzilla does not dance, Bill. He crushes things to a sick beat. Thank you. I appreciate that description. And Bjorn Norris is letting us know it's just shy of 4 weeks till his birthday. Jason Garcia says, story of my life at the moment with my box collection sometime soon, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I always liked the way they said it in the OG film, because the lips were so proud. It's like, Master Splinter. Oh, no, she goes, he was Splinter. What's wrong? Squigs is in the house. Folks, if you're not subscribed to Squigs, go subscribe to Squigs. Good buddy of mine, great gamer. He's going to start streaming soon. I've been helping him through with his setup and stuff, but he's been doing great. And whenever he hits the scene, I know he'll enjoy seeing all of you in chat. Check him out. And TJC, for that matter, definitely has earned your sub if you don't know what's up with TJC. So I think that's all he is. Let's start the show. So the description said, reissues, remasters, all this stuff. Where does it end? Right? Now, obviously, we're going to be talking quite a bit about the collecting aspect of this, but I will also touch on media and stuff like that too, as well as gaming. So strap in, folks. As is per usual, we're going to start with some pre-orders and stuff you may not know about or forgotten about or whatever. So we're going to start with this Godzilla figure from Boss Fight Studio. Looks articulated as fuck. It's classic design. Looks really cute. I think it's great. I think this is so cool. Garfield was a huge part of my life when I was a kid. I love this character. And to have this kind of a figure produced is kind of fun. $25. Hey, it's worth it to have that kind of articulation, exchangeable faces and all that. It's a smaller studio. I get it. And they don't just have Garfield. They have Odie, which is looking like this is spot on. This is the comic strip come to life, the cartoon come to life. And it's just cool. It's just ultra cool. And you also have Nermal. You got Nermal in here as well. The world's cutest kitty cat. The lasagna is not sold separately, actually. He comes with a pan of lasagna, actually, which is good. Nermal looking very normal. I love that they've put her in a box, which is great. That's what I'd use the most, honestly. And I don't know if I'm actually going to end up with Nermal. I got to have Garfield and Odie, though. If they had John, I would definitely get a John. But that's all they have for Garfield right now. And they're not supposed to be here until next year, right? Like, it's fine. But it's like, these are probably the best Garfield toys I've ever seen. So I want to leap on them and hope that they continue to move on with this. This is one for Billy from the Game Chasers. This is the Gremlins Little People Collector 4-pack. So you get a couple different, you get Gizmo, and you get Stripe, you get the Flasher Gremlin from the bar scene, as well as the Popcorn Ears Gremlin from the movie scene. They're little people, right? It's awesome. It's great that these exist. But I know that he would be very, very stoked for all that. Let me go ahead and catch up with you guys there in chat. See where you guys are at, how you're doing. Squiggle says he appreciates the shout out and hopefully can entertain a few people. You're very entertaining, sir. Don't even worry about it. You have some fun. Manic Plastic Toy Shop watched the new Garfield movie. It was pretty good. Well, I haven't seen it. I hope it is good. Yeah, I bet you will take Captain. That's right. Jay says, but will they release an in-scale John? I really hope. And I think Bjorn is right that it's a no-brainer, but I would think it would have made sense to put him in the 2-pack with Nermal. So if you want John, you have to take Nermal, kind of a thing. Steven said, crap, I'm late. Is there anything Megalon on here? Not that I know of, but you never know with this show. You know that. Cyril says they did a Cobra Kai line, a boss fight. Yeah, boss fight's pretty good stuff. They take a while, though. They take a while. Speaking of things that take a while, troop building can take time unless you're really quick with the pre-order button. And speaking of, there is a Rebel Trooper and Stormtrooper 2-pack from A New Hope in 6-inch scale for $44.99. So that means you're paying about $5 less versus 2 figures you'd buy individually. So this is a 2-pack that's actually cheaper than buying the individual figures, which is pretty cool. And if you just want to get, 3 packages of this to have a little blockade runner moment, you could do that. And I think this is cool. If you're in a troop building and you wanted this type of stuff, this would be very easy. An easy yes. And let's say you wanted 4 Stormtroopers but 3 Rebel Troopers, and you get 4 of the packs and you sell the 1 figure off for $20 and you're up on the whole deal. So it's good stuff. It's good stuff. TJT says, what did I think of Flame and Embryot Zeron Transformers announcement, Jim? I don't even know what you're talking about. So I have nothing to say about that. But I wanted to address it because I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. I keep up on things, but I only keep up on certain things. George says, the only problem I have the Rebel Trooper is the same face. I mean, they all look the same to me. And I know it's not racist because they're all white anyway. But yeah, I get where you're coming from with that. Well, you get a couple custom heads and that'd be, pretty well taken care of, I would imagine. It's good stuff, though, for sure. It's something I didn't expect to see it. And I figure it's one of those things that go over a lot of people's heads, too. Just not looking for it, not knowing it exists. This here is a Godzilla plush window clinger. I kind of want this. I have the non-clingy version, I believe it was. I get confused who sent me what plushes. So I got one Godzilla plush from Largo, and then this I might have gotten both of these from him, to be honest. I don't remember. But I have the same one, but a non-cling form, and I'm tempted to get this. I just don't know where I'd put him. Even though he's meant to be in a window, you know. I honestly don't know. But it's cool. It's really cool. Jason asks, is that faceist or figurist? It's whatever-ist. Isms, in my opinion, generally are not good. So there's a bunch of like calendars and cookbooks and different things. I only pointed out two of them. One's a Harry Potter advent calendar, which looks pretty neat. I don't care who you are. Everyone knows a Harry Potter fan. And this would be something good to get them. There's also an official Harry Potter book of crochet. Amigurumi. I can't even pronounce that right. But it teaches you how to make little crochet Harry Potter figures and stuff. It's kind of cool. Not my vibe, but I know there's people out there that know people that vibes with. So there you go. Like, it's something that you could conceivably get as a Christmas gift. Yes, you should start thinking about that. It's over halfway through the year. TJC said they'd never been released before. There are two characters from the Transformers Marvel comic. The box figures the cover art of one of the comics up for pre-order on Pulse now. Well, for the huge comic fans out there of Transformers, I think they should be able to damn get it. And it's a good example of what I mean by not reissuing stuff all the time. Steven says, come on, Megalon plushie, come on! World Meta Cardboard is here. Hey, man, I saw your DFW Joe show photo gallery video thing, and I loved it. That music made me a little emotional that I wasn't able to make it there, and I didn't get to see you. But it was really cool, and I love that video. You guys should watch World Meta Cardboard's video when you get a chance. A lot of cool people over there. Jason might have to get out the crochet thing for his sister. There you go. And Andy is here. Hello, Andy. It's good to see you, as always. There you go. And speaking of ladies, if you didn't know already, Valaverse is doing this thing for breast cancer awareness. They're doing a Steel Brigade female trooper in pink. And I am definitely getting at least one of these. Not only because it supports a good cause, but I honestly think it's just a cool looking figure. Like, pink doesn't have a lot of applications in military stuff, and the fact that he went and did this is cool. He's also releasing a very limited pink edition of the Vanguard. We will not be getting that. There's no way. If it scaled with Barbie figures, like, sure, but it doesn't, so no. Not happening, not happening, not happening. More Valaverse stuff. You could still order the Crimson Shadow Praetorian from there, which is just a cool looking figure. Cool looking guy. And they're still available for pre-order over at Big Bad, so check it out. And let's see what else. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You got Sidewinder and Atlas and Senshi, as well as the exclusive, which is Night Ops Senshi, which looks cool. Colonel Siege, the Arctic. This is in stock, I guess. You can get a Sergeant Slaughter on sale for $24 if you don't already have one. And I got a couple other things mixed in here as well. Some great stuff. So get your Action Force on. Yeah, Action Force to me is very much like Godfather 3. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Yes, that pink Vanguard is 100% Embargo's fault, and I'm so glad that it is, because it's a cool thing. And they're also doing the variant that is what you call it, mud splattered, which I think is really cool, and I'm tempted to get that instead of the regular one, you see. And you are very welcome. I will watch anything you put out any given time. Did you miss it on DFW Fest? I felt stupid. I lived 12 minutes from there, but my back was just way out of whack, and there's no way I was gonna be able to walk into the convention center, let alone inside and around. I'm like, it's not gonna work. So I had to bow out, and I was hoping to be able to get people to come over at night, but it just didn't work out. There's too much cool stuff going on. Joe DeBecky in the house, always good to see you. Says, hello, boys and girls, and Mr. Grindhead. Hello to you too, sir. It's good to see you. Now, I get to the bad news portion of the stream. I always like showing stuff you can get, but this Black Mana, the Black Manta, is sold out almost everywhere because the Black Mana at Walmart for superpowers just, you couldn't get them anywhere. I did get this pre-order in, thank goodness. I would much prefer that the exclusive have been this black one and we got the regular colored one, but I'm glad he's available in some places, and I'm sure he'll come back up again once they start shipping out. But be aware of it. It exists, and keep your eyes open for it because people are going to want it. And you got some other stuff that's in stock, and there's pre-orders here. You can still get a Batman Who Laughs if you really want to. Don't Make Me Laugh. Along with some other variants I don't need, like Kilowog. I don't need that. The Brainiac you can still get. That 3-pack. I started to see that selling out everywhere, this 3-pack. That's why I went ahead and pulled the trigger over at McFarlane, because I was like, I want those. Metamorpho sold out. The Guy Gardner Green Lantern sold out. Like, they went ham on the Blue Beetle stuff too. People were really enjoying that stuff. I thought it would be a sleeper, but the hardcore DC people are coming out in droves for the superpower stuff. I'm actually pretty surprised. I'm not upset about it. Here's your obligatory overpriced statue. $800 for a quarter scale Raiders of the Lost Ark replica of the man himself. I don't know that he ever had that pose in that location with that facial expression. So I don't know what this is meant to be a replica of, per se. But it's cool. It's definitely not $800 worth of cool. Pod Racing Palpatine is in the house. Hello there yourself. It's good to see ya. Good to see ya. The last thing I want to bring up from Big Bad is that if you missed out on the pre-order, the Plasma Series Ecto 1s, the fully featured Ecto 1 that will scale to 1/18th and will work with the new 1/18th Ghostbusters that just recently were announced for pre-order as well. So if you want one, you can get one. It's going to set you back $60, but you can get it. I don't really agree with the price. I think they should, for this, even though with the high level of detail, I think 45 is probably okay. But $60 seems a bit much to me. But maybe that's just moi, because there is a lot of detail in that figure relative to its size, or vehicle, I should say. It's good. It is definitely a good, no question about that. But I wanted to make sure people knew that it wasn't just a matter of, oh, if you didn't get the pre-order, it's gone, kind of a thing. That's not true. And that's usually not true with stuff. Stuff that I thought for sure would sell out pre-order, when they ship, they get a couple in, you can kind of get them. You know, and then there's weird figures like the Black Series reissue of Archive Series of Bosk. Like, you can't get him anywhere. And that's one of those ones where it's like, when that one comes in, I better get it no matter what. Even if I change my mind on wanting to have it. Which, spoilers, I won't. But if I did, I still would want it because it would be a return on investment even to sell it at $5 above retail and give someone a deal. You know, kind of a thing. So, reissues, remasters, repaints. We've all heard it before. There's a lot of repaints in every toy line. Lots of part reuse in every toy line. People recycle assets in video games all the time. I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that came out recently that actually was creative. And then when you do see one that someone thinks is creative, it's usually some kind of crazy out there art crap. And it's like, well, no, there's no story. It's just very creative. It's like, oh, like the most recent Francis Ford Coppola film. I saw a video about that last night and I was like, hey, I don't want to watch this. The older this guy gets, the more he thinks he's still in college making art house films. And that's great. But don't come crying to me when they don't do well commercially, because that's just not... It's not what sells, buddy. So today's discussion is really a free form of like, all of these mediums that we love, when it comes to toys, when it comes to film, when it comes to video games, even music to a certain degree, at what point do they stop recycling old content, sounds, visuals, what have you? And I think the ultimate answer is when we stop paying them to do so, right? The one outlier, I think, is the McFarlane Superpowers line, where he just puts out, repaints every wave, just to fill out the wave so he can afford to do the new stuff. And it makes some sense, even though I don't necessarily like it, but He-Man and Master of the Universe are notorious for that. It's like the video I did last week about Too Bad, because it is basically a repaint of a figure we have yet to get. So it's kind of interesting there. When my coworker says, "So cats?" Bjorn says they won't stop recycling. And well, I think as long as people show something. Now, with toys, it's a little bit different. When you reissue a toy, you're giving people a chance to get typically a character that maybe is gone up in price. And I don't think we would have seen this as often as the 80s. You'd see more alternate versions where it's not just the paint deco that's different, but accessories and sculpt might change a little bit. So you'd see like a Snake Eyes in every wave of G.I. Joe, or you'd see a Superman and a Batman every wave and stuff like that of superpowers. But now it's, you're just kind of going out there in a full-blown reissue of like a Bosk or an R2-D2 or whatever. I think those will always exist because there are people that get into collecting a certain toy line, quote unquote, late in the game. And they're like, why would I start collecting now with these middle of the road characters when I can't get my marquee stuff? It's kind of where I was with Star Wars and to a certain degree G.I. Joe at first. And then you start to see, you get your feet wet in collecting. You see that, well, they're going to reissue this sometime. They're going to reissue that sometime, blah, 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 blah. Like if you're in the classic look of G.I. Joe, but you like 6-inch scale, now is the time to start collecting if you don't already have them. Because you've got a reissue of Duke out there that looks awesome. You've got a reissue of Scarlet that looks amazing. One of Cobra Commander that's coming. And Destro is still easy to find. Like, they're out there. All right. But they're not a one-to-one re-release of what has come before. There's slight variances and shit like that. I don't know. It's kind of, when it comes to, something where you're getting a reissue, you're getting a reissue or a bump up. So like a bump up would be like with Blu-ray, for example, like movies going to 4K, or getting a 4K or a Blu-ray with more features on it, like a collector's edition. That stuff happens all the time. Like this year, we finally got True Lies on Blu-ray and 4K at the same time, and then they took the time to do up Aliens, which, depending on how you look at it, is either a great addition or not. Literally how you look at it, because it's about your TV settings at this point, because their color grading was weird on it. But they're constantly recycling old films for new releases, and a lot of times Shout Factory or someone like that will come along and do a definitive release and just keep pressing it until people stop buying it, and then it goes away. Bing Long brings up a good question. He says, what about recycling the Mask toy line soon? All the other stuff came back, and not only once. I agree. I think Mask needs to come back in an official status. If they just flat out reissued the Mask toys in the same scale and everything, and the price point was reasonable, like $20 to $30 for a vehicle, like the big ones, and then like, I don't know, $10 to $20 for the smaller ones, like, I would be in. I would buy the whole thing. You reissue Boulder Hill for $100, sold. I'd buy the whole line. On principle alone, I would buy the whole line. I loved Mask. I had a bunch of them. I had a bunch from every different wave. I even had the extra backpack stuff, because those were cheap to get, and it was an easy way to get more, Mask stuff. And there are some glaring holes in my collection for sure. So it'd be fun for them to reissue it. But I think that's something a lot of people bring up all the time. I don't know if it's a rights issue or not. I don't think it should be because Hasbro bought Kenner and Kenner owned Mask. I don't know. But it's really difficult to figure out why they haven't done that yet. And I hope that they do. I hope they do. Stephen S. just bought a mint condition VHS of The Ref with Dennis Leary that we're watching tonight for $2. Hey man, $2 is $2. That's the right price on VHSs as far as I'm concerned. You know, we have a modest VHS collection. I used to have many, many more, but I got rid of most of the ones I just didn't want. And I don't feel like I need a bunch of that stuff. Like, I'm happy to have like obscure films digitally. Like, that's fine. You know, I think a lot of these films that have been, you know, like super marginalized as far as like super rare VHSs, like they should digitize them and, you know, preserve them in some way for all to see. That's what I think should happen. But if you have the physical VHS, like, that's great. It's whatever. It's good. Oh yeah, I'm not. There's a lot of toy lines I'd love to see redone, Bjorn. That's for sure. Definitely not what we're talking about here. But I wanted to indulge Bing because it's a good point. There's other stuff we probably would like to see that we're not seeing, and we're getting more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. So if you're a toy collector, most of your toy lines out there, you're going to be able to get most of the stuff you want to get in one form or another, whether it be an original release or a reissue. And Action Force definitely does a lot of reissues, but not so much. He always tries to update it, make it enticing for someone to rebuy because he's made improvements over time. And for someone who's new to that character, they get something a little bit extra. And no one's going to get raked across the coals because it's not the exact same figure. Like, he's being very smart about it. So if you're going to do reissues, do it the Action Force way, I find. But I do think it's smart because it's a newer line, even though we're several years in at this point. It's a newer toy line. And you want to help people get into the hobby. So there is that. And Steven S. says, okay, well, I do have Megalon versus Godzilla on Blu-ray. Well, there you go. Why wouldn't you have that on Blu-ray? You're the Megalon person. If you didn't, I'd be like, what's wrong with you? Stop what you're doing and go get one, right? Well, you know, so I think there's a certain amount of trying to maintain market share that reissues and repaints kind of occupy. I think we all know that, right? You want to keep people invested. There are versions of the characters that are going to sell more than others, but you want to get a little something for everybody and also give people an in to get the characters that they want, right? So I think that exists for sure. When it comes to film, it's a bit of a wider subject, in my opinion. We're constantly getting rehashed, rethought, rebooted ideas of various franchises. Some I never thought I would see a remake of. Like when I saw that they had made a remake of National Lampoon's Vacation and just called it Vacation, and they cast great people in it, but they just didn't work. I'm like, well, I'm not surprised. There's only one National Lampoon's Vacation. Like a vacation now, you know, it's going to be different. Like, I could go on a whole tangent about that. How many Batman reboots have we seen? How many Spider-Man reboots have we seen? Most for the better, some for the worst. There's tons of different opportunities out there for, you know, you see a movie like Blue Beetle, which is like a character like that no one in the mainstream give a shit about. It's kind of like a DCEU version of Guardians to a certain degree. And it did pretty well. And the toys are certainly selling like crazy, which is good. But now we're right back to Superman, which I understand. You've got to establish your universe and the tone and everything. And Superman deserves a really good movie. Man of Steel was fine. Superman Returns was fine, but he needs more than fine. Superman needs a really good movie. So I hope this new one's going to do it. Yeah, I heard they are talking about doing a Goonies 2. And yeah, I'm not about that life. I don't want to see a Goonies 2. You know, unless you can bring the whole cast back, and I mean the whole cast back. As far as like the Goonies themselves, even if it's just for a freaking, you know, extended cameo where they're the parents, you know what I mean? If you could set it and do it right, but they're not going to do it right. They're not. Worldmate Corbett says there was talk of a Hasbro Mask reboot, a 6-inch figure line with no vehicles. Then there's no point. I don't. There's no point because you don't give me vehicles like that. That's the whole thing. Bill Wifta says apparently Batman and Spider-Man are the only characters selling for Marvel and DC. I'm like, that's not a new thing. It's never really been a new thing. Like X-Men were the big one for Marvel for a while, but Spider-Man was consistent underneath. Steven says leave Martha alone. I mean, that's fair. I mean, she's fine. Bill Wifta says the Superman movie's already suffering from character bloat. I mean, here's the thing about the Superman movie. You haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. We've seen screenshots from leak Instagram posts and shit like that. Now, are there a lot of characters in it? Probably yes. Now, if you're going to see a Superman movie, you probably know who Superman is, right? I do. Everybody does. So rather than waste time on setting things up all over again, it sounds like they're just doing a Superman movie where it's like, hey, Superman exists and we're doing this thing. I'll give it a chance. I will totally give it a chance. I've seen movies that actually suffer from character bloat. And I've seen ones that looked like they would and did not. Avengers Endgame and Infinity War are good examples of that. There were over 67 characters in those films. And those films did just fine. So, I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong. I'm only saying, let's wait and see, because maybe it will. Maybe it will suffer from character bloat. Maybe they're just trying to tell a good story with deep characters around Superman that aren't just humans going, golly, Superman's neat. I don't know, but I hope. I hope they'll do it. Let's do a story about Superman. All right, Superman wakes up, kicks all the bad guys' asses, fucks Lois, and goes home. The end. All right, cool. I do not want to see Nicolas Cage as Superman now. It's too late. That ship has sailed. Okay, so Bill Wifta says Avengers Endgame was built up to. I was like, okay. So have we not been building up to a really good Superman movie for the last 15 years? We've needed one for that amount of time. You know, and on the same token, look at the other James Gunn projects he's done with comic books. Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 through 3, and the second Suicide Squad film, all of which were always throwing characters at you, and generally speaking, you cared about all of them. For more, you know, for better or for worse. So if there's anybody that can pull off a character-dense Superman story, I think it's James Gunn. But if not, I'll be the first one to be like, you were right. But until then, I'm fine with it. Steven wants to put Sloth as Superman. That'd be difficult to pull off as the actor is no longer with us. And I would still want to see that, though. Okay, so here we get into this. The problem that Bing Long sees a lot of bad storytelling. Everyone says that. And yeah, I think to a certain degree that's true. I think no matter what you're aspiring to do, if you're writing a subpar, it's going to be, you know, it's just not going to be there, you know. So I'm not here to have a whole fucking discussion about just comic book movies in general. I'm saying movies, period. Okay. Almost every concept they could think of, they've rehashed or tried to do an homage to or whatever. And a lot of the newer stuff that's coming out, they're not getting good budgets or good distribution. No one's hearing about them and they're going away. So I think ultimately that the problem tends to be is that especially 80s and 90s fans, 70s to a lesser degree, but certainly 80s and 90s fans, they seem to think that we want more of the same or worse. Now, I understand wanting there to be a familiarity with your media. I completely understand wanting to feel comfort and nostalgia with some stuff. I think that's an important part of it, right? You want to evoke certain feelings. But the fact of the matter is that it's, in many ways, I think for our generation especially, it's harder for us to latch on to new things because we don't know what to expect. That's not our fault. We've been conditioned to expect more of the same. Okay? So when Marvel MCU movies stopped giving you that dopamine hit, because either you pulled the rose-colored glasses off, or the dopamine hits just stopped coming in general because it's no longer a new thing, or the stories started lacking for lack of a better term. People were like, give us what we want. And it's like, well, all right, well, how do they do new stuff? So it's not fans' fault. I'll tell you that right now. It's not our fault, but I'm saying our reaction to things is our responsibility as well. But I think that for such a long time, they've been just throwing regurgitated shit at us. They just keep waiting for something to stick to the wall. And I'm hoping the new DC stuff will be a road towards that. For example, I love the original Lord of the Rings films. I prefer the extended editions, and I will not watch any of the Hobbits. I won't watch that stupid fucking show on Amazon. I'm happy with the original stuff. Just like Lauren, huge Game of Thrones fan, right? I'll eventually get to watching it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it too. Begrudgingly, but I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But I'm not going to watch this prequel crap. I've been hearing bad things about that. Been hearing bad things about Acolyte. And when I hear bad things about anything, I look into what the source, the root of the complaints are. And the root of the Acolyte complaints were that they didn't seem to have a fucking clue how anything worked in Star Wars. And reading what little I chose to read on the subject, it's pretty clear they didn't have a fucking clue how Star Wars worked. They just don't know how the universe functions in terms of the science and just the environment. This is how gravity works, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, if you don't understand the basic ideas of how things are supposed to function, right? You can't write a compelling human drama if you fundamentally don't understand how the human mind works. Right? So how are they supposed to know how to write a compelling story about these different in-tribes and infighting while understanding how the mainstream stuff works to begin with? How do you rebel against something you don't know? Right? So, like Bing is saying, he's all for new stuff, but write it competently, And I don't care what color, sexual identity, gender, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what your background is, what your resume says. I don't care. If you can write a good story, write a good story. That's all I want. And if you want to break some eggs doing it, please. Star Wars universe needs a shakeup. There's no question about it, right? But I also am a person that enjoyed the Obi-Wan series. I didn't have a huge issue with the Book of Boba Fett. I'm very much a give me what you're going to give me, and I'll form an opinion based on that. I'm probably not going to watch Acolyte because what I know about what the story entails, I'm not interested in. I'm just not interested in it. And that's fine. I hope that they do well, and I hope that they continue to push other projects. You can't, not every new thing you do is going to do well. And they have to be aware that there's a risk. You have to be willing to take the risk. So whether we're talking about toys or physical media releases, new films, TV series, comic books, music, whatever, you have to be willing to take the risk. Some people are, some people aren't. And I think fundamentally, these companies just don't want to assume any of the risk. And that's why we're getting such crap, frankly. Brick Something's in the house says, good morning. I said, sorry, morning where I'm at currently. Well, good morning to you. It's all relative. He also says, dunno, I like to figure things out for myself. Been pleasantly surprised. I get side-eyed all the time, but I love the sequel trilogy, having a blast with Star Wars shows, and enjoyed Rings of Power. Yeah, look, I'll watch Rings of Power if Lauren decides she really, really wants to see it. But I'm not going to put myself through it without a good reason. The sequel trilogy, I loved each of them the first time I saw them. And then when I took a step back, each of them I was like, okay, I got some problems. Now, I own them all, and I watch them occasionally. I think that's their legacy. You know, when I want to watch Star Wars, I always tend to go back to the original trilogy. More so lately than in the past, because I liked reliving newer Star Wars. So I'm not saying that it's... I am not... you all know me by now, at least you should. I am not a person that says, if it's new, I don't like it. There's a lot of people out there. Some of you might even be in this chat room, and you've just decided that these new kids writing old, new stories for old characters, I don't like it. And that's fine. That's your opinion. But So, Bjorn says, if being X race or Y sexual preference is your only selling point of character, I'm not interested. That's not the case with the show. It's not. I'm sorry. If you think that's the case, you're watching the wrong goddamn YouTube videos. Because that's bullshit. It's about these different covens within the light and dark realm and different tribes and how these things all kind of come together. And are there allegories for certain things in society? Of course. Of course there are. But the story itself does not look interesting to me. Now, I might watch it and love it. I kind of doubt it. But that's not the case. It's really not. And yeah, Brick says, definitely no need to put yourself through anything. These things are something we enjoy. I agree. And I also generally enjoy genre fiction. Enjoy seeing this world continue to thrive. So I almost always, I'll check almost anything out. But I'm going to quote Mark Maron, and I'll say this. I don't know how much time I have left. So I kind of have to figure out how I want to spend my time. And granted, and Lauren will confirm this. If I call her in here, she'll confirm it. We spend at least a couple hours of our, TV watching time every week rewatching Jackass stuff we've already seen. You watch it all the time. But that's because it's good. It's fun to watch. Melvor, welcome to the show, says, I have less problem with revisiting old IPs as I do the lack of quality that we get instead. Okay, sorry. Instead of being respectful to the original lore and adding from there, writers seem to want to undermine what made it great in the first place. I agree with that. I actually 100% agree with what Melvor is saying. People seem to want to shake things up in the wrong ways. I think we have to have a Bible for Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, and some other things, where it says, this is how it works. And as a matter of fact, we had those all throughout the last few decades. And when Disney bought them, it was like, just try whatever you want, see what sticks. And I don't like that. The whole force healing crap. I don't think that's a thing, buddy. Dyad and the Force or not, I'm not seeing that. Sorry. And I could nitpick. I can nitpick and nitpick and nitpick. But the fact is, I think you need to just respect what's there. It's kind of like saying, this is my view on Star Wars. Think of Star Wars as we know the Skywalker trilogy happening in New York. Sorry, I keep bumping the mic. Happening in New York City. Okay. We know how everything works there. We know how all the different businesses and governments function and who can do what their abilities are. I'm like, great. And then imagine that that's one version of across an entire country, you know, of how that universe works. Well, take me to Chicago. Show me how it works there. You know, there are certain things we can't break in terms of like physics and social structures, shit like that. And Mandalorian was the best example of that. And they just haven't, you know, done that. Brick something said, if we had Bibles, though, taking Marvel as an example, so much of what people now enjoy and love wouldn't exist. For example, McFarlane era Spider-Man broke all sorts of Ditko Lee rules. Aha! Okay, I see what you're saying, and you're not wrong, but I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm talking about the bare bone basics. Okay? For example, Jedi do not do this. Jedi do not do that. You know, Sith, this is how the Sith tends to function. You know, like people, it'd be like someone showing up and saying like, all right, now the Sith are 3. They're no longer just 2. Just because they want to have a third Sith character in there. Or Spider-Man, you know, like I always had a huge issue with Raimi's Spider-Man having biological webs. I understand why it made sense for the first mainstream Spider-Man movie for that to occur, and I know it was a takeoff inspired by Spidey 2099, and again, it was simply because they didn't want to have this kid build web shooters for whatever reason, right? But if moving forward, you're like, okay, Peter Parker's Spider-Man made his own web shooters. So like that was like that happened, right? Now, there's a billion different ways to explore that little tiny thing. Go do that. But when you break that one rule, or like, okay, that whether it's a web shooter or not, but now Spider-Man shoots web out of his ass. Do you want to see a whole movie series where he shoots web out of his ass? I don't think so. It's probably a porn of that somewhere. But the point being that, like, there's a difference between, like, setting rigid rules that people can't write around and people just disregarding the stuff that exists. It's a fine line, I'll grant you, but it's... And again, we're talking movies right now. I haven't even gotten to talk about like music and how people recycle riffs and fucking feels and artwork styles, and like in metal, it's like they all look the same. Some of them are starting to sound the same, even to me. And it's crazy. Podrace and Palpatine says, what happened to the romantic comedy? They don't make them anymore because no one finds anything funny about falling in love and breaking their heart. I'm kidding. I don't know. I honestly don't know. They just don't make money the way they used to. That's for sure. Steven would love a Goonies accurate detailed playset pirate ship with figures and all. I think that'd be great. I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be cool. Jason Garcia, that Disney had the Bible and ignores the creator and his apostle. They need to make Star Wars stories and not insert creator's Star Wars story. I mean, we all are armchair quarterbacks here, and I think there's a certain point. Brick says, but George Lucas broke his own, quote, rules all the time mid-storytelling. Yeah, and that was one of the problems with his storytelling, in my opinion. I think that some of the things that George Lucas didn't do great was ignoring his own crap. And then acting like he meant it to be that way all the time. I think there was an arrogance to that. And Brick says, creatives need to create freely. Setting limits via a Bible can be challenging. Get off the word Bible. All right? I know I said it. I'm just saying there has to be some kind of parameters. Like, we all accept that water's wet, the sky is blue, and other things. Grass is green, for example, right? That's the kind of thing that I mean. These basic ideas of how these things look, feel, and function. I'm seeing way too much experimentation with that in the negative. I think that it's like, it's not working. Brick. Yeah, we would have gotten Miles Morales because I said Peter Parker Spider-Man. All right? You're getting too hung up here, buddy. Miles Morales is awesome, and it took me a while to come around to that because I'm a Peter Parker guy. But we do have a Marvel Bible. It's called the Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe. And it goes over what each character is capable of, generally speaking, and talks about their entire synopsis. It just talks about the history of what's happened. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you can't be expressive with a character's arc and do something new with that character. But, you know, as long as Peter Parker's not shitting out the webbing, I'm probably going to be okay. You know, Gojatron says every franchise should have a strong foundation that different creators can build their own house on. You damage the foundation, your house will crumble. I agree with that. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Thank you, Goji, as usual, for saying what I'm trying to say much better than I did. You really do need, I think that if you're building these spaces within existing intellectual properties, universes, whatever you want to call it, you have to have some respect for the foundation. You know, somewhere between The Force Awakens, which is a fucking cut and paste, copy paste New Hope clone, and The Last Jedi, which throws out the bantha with the bathwater, somewhere in the middle, I think, is where one needs to be for existing franchises. Somewhere in there. And I think most of the MCU does that. Like, they're not doing the comic book accurate stories. They never have. Ever. And that's fine. But they knew that going in. They said that going in. And that's why it's easier for me to stomach MCU stuff versus some other things. That's my thought on that, though. I keep saying I have a video coming out about that. And I do. I need to talk about that more. Potterson Palpatine says some IPs should be left. Who is asking for a sequel to Twister? Yet here we are. I agree. There's certain things, like how many Sharknado damn movies do we need, right? Jason Garcia, or at least Disney could use a Kevin Feige. I think that Star Wars could use a Kevin Feige, and I think they're trying to put that one cat that's he was responsible for the Clone Wars, Dave Filoni. I think they're positioning him as that to a certain degree. And I think that if they stop fucking with him, he'll probably be okay. Brick says, I hear you. I read the Marvel Handbook as a kid in monthly format. Just saying we sometimes lean towards orthodoxy too hard. Even the handbook changed. People who were dead came back to life, etc. And he said, I'm not trying to troll. I'll stop. No, I know you're not trying to troll. And I see what you're saying, and I agree with your points for the most part. I simply say that you have to have some kind of a basis, some kind of pad, a foundation from which to jump off of. You jump as high as you want, but there's certain things that we all have to agree. You know, like, don't try to get a jump scare out of me by changing the laws of physics, is all I'm saying, right? But, you know, the question asked is, when is this going to stop? Like, you know, does history repeat itself? It always will, because eventually something new will come along that we'll like, and then you're going to get that 17 fucking times. But I think about the movies that I thought were new and fresh at the time and very exciting. SLC Punk is a good example. And the creator did do a sequel, which was not nearly as good, but it was very good, and I really enjoyed it. And you have Donnie Darko. They insisted on a sequel after they saw the DVD sales were up, and the guy refused to do it, and they did one, and it sucked. Never saw anything again. Battlestar Galactica was rebooted in the mid-2000s, and was way better than anything they had done before. Really drilled down some cool things. So, you know, can you reboot, change, remix, all this stuff? Of course it can be done, but you got to put in the effort. And the reason that all of these reimaginings that did work have worked, in my opinion, is because they understood what was fundamentally important about those properties and those characters. Brick says, I agree with you on having a foundation. The examples of Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, having watched and read most of the new stuff, I'm not convinced any foundational things have changed. I still got some issues with the Jedi powers in sequel trilogy myself. Jason Garcia says, The Matrix, cough, cough. Yeah, the fourth Matrix was actually a really expensive troll upon itself, and I appreciated that. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit because it was very, very self-aware, and that's a good thing. But as I look, in the camera, I look at all these different toy lines and these characters that are represented. I know they're still trying to make a new He-Man movie, and I just saw a debate today on the Farce Brick about, oh, this needs to be a rated R, brutal barbarian film. Ugh. And someone brought up a really good point. They're like, when has it ever been like it? Well, it was savage for the first, like, 4 or 5 mini comics. I'm like, okay. Like, it's like, I don't need T-list tits out and He-Man saying fuck and decapitating people. Now, if they made that movie and it was well written and they earned the darkness, yeah, I'd watch the shit out of that. But that's not what I'm looking for with the He-Man movie out the gate. If you want to surprise me with that, cool. As long as you do it with quality, I'm in. And that's, I think, the bottom line. When it comes to the toy reissues, your Bosks, your Stormtroopers, your shit. Like we're gonna get another Ghost Rider. We just got a Daddy Catch Ghost Rider kind of a thing. Certain versions of Spider-Man, whatever the case may be. As long as the quality is there, or you update the articulation or the paint deco or something to be in line with modern stuff, you can regurgitate that much stuff as much as you need to, because people do need access to these toy lines. When it comes to Blu-ray and digital releases, make sure the transfer's up to stuff. Give me all the special features and put it in a package that isn't going to cost me an arm and a leg, and I'll buy it. And when it comes to music, like, write something new. Have a logo I can read. It's not that hard. And with all these streaming series and films and everything else, like, if you want to continue these universes, do so. But give me something compelling that isn't obviously trying to subvert what came before. I'm kind of sick of that. You give me new stuff, give me surprises, that's fine, but you don't have to do it at the expense of what came before. That's my thought, anyway. Joe DeBecki says, I think as far as franchises go, there are facets to all that everyone can enjoy. Possibly not every facet, but you have something. I agree. I think that there's a few basic things about everything we're talking about that people liked. For example, I think Police Academy, I don't think there's anybody that thinks Michael Winslow wasn't delightful as Laravel Jones. I think it's the one thing about Police Academy we all remember and we all enjoy. And I think that Police Academy also taught us that what we really wanted to see was more of Michael Winslow. And the fact that he has not had a bigger career since really hurts me. Says, there's no more long uninterrupted runs of anything. It's all a la carte. Yep, I agree with that. But I realize I'm a broken record here, so I'm gonna start wrapping up. I think history will always repeat itself as long as we continue to react the way we're reacting to things that we have. I do feel like every time something starts over, there's potential for expansion and collapse. And I think that if something falls somewhere in the middle, we should be a bit happier about that. Where if it doesn't screw anything up, I think we should be a bit happier as long as the story is compelling, right? I don't need every new thing that comes out to give me a twist at the end about something. I just want a good goddamn story. And I think The Mandalorian is a good example of that. I think that a couple of the Marvel series are a good example of that. But ultimately, if you really, truly, fundamentally do not like the stuff that's out there, do not watch it. And that's the only way, because even on stuff you're already paying for, if you don't watch it, they view all that stuff. That's all I can tell you. But if you're someone who's creating this stuff, I'm not saying do better. I'm not saying that. But if you really are serious about getting the nostalgic dollar, then don't use what you're writing to shit all over everything we did. Rian Johnson is not a template to follow. That guy's a piece of shit. He was in an impossible position, pushed way too hard for what his vision was, and while he got that, it pleased many people, but shit on just as many. And there was a middle ground he just did not toe, and it did not bode well for the franchise. They should have given him his own trilogy. And that's it. You know, I don't know why I'm talking about Star Wars so goddamn much. I don't even care that much. Jason Garcia will accept a fuck in a Star Wars show, but it's got to be a Mace Windu show because, you know, I agree. You want my version of He-Man. Well, my version of He-Man would be very different. Godatron says Godzilla 54, 84, 14, 17, and 23. All different, and yet all have their origins in mankind's fears and failures, different houses, same foundation. Exactly. You know, it's a beautiful thing, you know, and that's why Peter Parker as Spider-Man works and Miles Morales as Spider-Man works, because they have the same basic moral foundation for the character. Different ways of getting to the same place, different power sets, different eras, different parts of the city, different ethnicity, but they're both equally Spider-Man, just like each of these Godzillas are all equally Godzilla, and they all reflect things back to the audience, you know, tell us these stories that help us grow as people, you know, and I think that if you're going to throw a house party, at least know the measurements and size of the house you're throwing the party in. And make sure that it works for that house. You know what I mean? Tell any story you want. But if you're telling that story in somebody else's house, respect the house you're in enough to not leave it in shambles when you leave. That's just something to think about. All right? I love you guys. We'll see you next week for TGL. Maybe some other videos will pop up soon. I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. But I hope you're having a great summer. I wish you a happy July. And if you do celebrate July 4th, keep veterans and pets in mind when you do fireworks. That's all I ask. In the meantime, I love y'all. And we'll see you again very soon. Cheers.